Hey, everybody. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new here. I was so excited about the equipment working decently that I wanted to go ahead and do one more like bonus video, if you will. For those of you who are new to the channel, you may not know, I've had a slew of autoimmune issues in my past. Obviously, they're still with me. However, I learned to handle them differently. I was diagnosed with celiac disease first, which is the digestive, you can't have wheat, rye, barley, causes inflammation, all that kind of stuff. So I changed my diet and I thought, okay, well, this is manageable. And then I went through an extremely stressful period of a few years where, oh my gosh, like my entire foundation crumbled underneath me. My husband had an affair. Then, because my family didn't understand the decisions I was making, they quit talking to me. Like, legit, my entire foundation was gone. And that level of stress can actually activate autoimmune issues. Even the stress itself can cause inflammation that can cause autoimmune, whether you're genetically predisposed or not. So, during that time period, I was diagnosed with lupus, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, and I think something else, but it kind of doesn't really matter, right? That's enough. So I started going to the doctors because that's what we do, right? When there's something wrong. And we have been taught to just accept what they say and do what they say, or at least my generation was. I think people are getting uh, more involved in their own care, and that's why I wanted to do this video because I didn't think to question the doctors. And when I look back, I'm like, why would I not? But it's just who I am now versus who I was then. And so they started putting me on medications because I thought, okay, this is going to make me feel better. But I kept having more problems and they'd give me more medications. And ultimately, I went from feeling sore and worn out to walking with a cane and being told to go on disability. They had me on like 7 different medications, several of them the absolute max dosage you can be on. And then that medication would cause a side effect, and they'd give me another medication. And then that medication would cause a problem that they put in. Right, you follow me? Well, that's why I've hashtagged this big pharma and lifetime patient because once you're on medications for your medications, it's really hard to get off the medications. And I finally reached a point because, like I said, I had gotten progressively worse once I got involved with doctors. After the initial diagnosis, I didn't think to do research, look for holistic options or lifestyle changes or things like that that would benefit me. I just thought, oh, okay, I just need to take medicine. Well, when I went to the doctor, and this was when I was living in Arizona, I went in and I said, look, I feel worse than I ever have. And so they wanted to prescribe me gabapentin on top of hydroxychloroquine and I can't even think of the worst one. But is it like I'm like, no, no, you don't understand. I don't want to take more meds. And she was like, well, then I guess you'll just have to go on disability. I'm like, excuse me? I I, I kind of lost it at that point. I was over it. I looked at the doctor and said, you know what? You can fuck off. You're fired. And I walked out, and as I was passing the receptionist, she was used to me making my next appointment. And she was like, "Are you ready to schedule?" I'm like, "Fuck off, you're fired." Just kept going. And I had reached a point where I'm like, "Are you serious?" I went from being sore and worn out to can barely walk and feel sick and bubble-headed all the time, and your answer is to go on disability and prescribe me more meds? I was so angry. So I went home and I started to research inflammation and autoimmune and the causes and what natural things could counteract that. And the one medication, I wish I could think of the name of it. I'm sure it will come to me like tomorrow when I don't need it. But anyway, if you were to stop that medication suddenly, it could cause psychosis. And I know this because I ran out more than once and the pharmacy didn't have it. And you talk about not liking your brain. But I had read that antidepressants could help you alleviate that while you were getting off the medication. So I call my family doctor and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get off this medication. Could you give me a prescription for an antidepressant, just temporary, while I'm trying to wean myself off? They're like, well, no, because you need that medication. What you have is a progressive illness, and it's not going to get better. It's chronic, and you'll deal with it your whole life. You need to stay on that medication. Thanks. So I ended up, and this is ridiculous, but they were the little capsules that have little beads inside of them. And so I started weaning myself off, and I literally would count the beads, put it back together, and I cut myself back like that to avoid the side effects of stopping the medication suddenly. However, I went from walking with a cane and not being able to think straight because my mind was so foggy from the medication. And I had shifted my focus from being sick to getting better. So my energy was not on being sick, it was on getting better. And I started doing everything I could, changed my diet. I started spiritual practices for my mind to calm my mind, to manage stress. I was able to start slowly getting more physical activity into my routine as I got stronger. Because with all these medications and being unstable and everything else, my muscles were weak. And as I got my body built back up, 6 months later, after being on a cane, unstable, and barely able to think straight, I did the whip nay nay at my son's wedding. That was our mother son dance. And from there, within a year of stopping my medication and firing my doctors, uh, I felt great. I really I felt like me again. A year and a half later, I was running a flatbed wrecker, lifting things heavier than me and going to the gym for 8 to 10 hours a week. So, just saying, before you accept the idea that you're disabled or that you are chronic and you can never recover and you have to do this and you have to do that, check it out, check into it. There are so many things that we can do just in our lifestyle and even our mindset for wellness. And even again, if you're new here, the reason I have this lovely haircut and have looked so drawn and haggard, I'm actually, because of the autoimmune, I was exposed to toxic mold over a long term and developed mycotoxicosis, which is basically mold poisoning. And the treatment for that is some very harsh drugs. It's like antifungal chemo, more or less. And so it didn't go away. However, because of my experience with the autoimmune, I feel like I handled it differently this time. And rather than focus on, oh, I'm sick, I can't do anything, I'm sick, it's been an inconvenience for sure. But I've continued to focus on what I want to build in my life and where I'm going and how to get better. What can I do to make myself better? What parts of my body do I need to replenish? What is this taking away from me? Um, I follow the Mediterranean diet because I wanted as much nutrient dense, enriching foods as I could take in because I know that my body needs that extra oomph right now. And I'm become a junkie for it, so I'm absolutely going to continue it. But I'm just saying that so many times we can start to identify with the label of an illness or a disability. And then in our mind, we think, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. And if I had listened to the doctors back in 2014, I'd be on disability right now. And that's not me. And it wasn't necessary. And once I got off all of the garbage that they had me on, I actually started to feel better, get better. Yes, it still is a part of my body, but I'm able to manage it with other methods that don't poison me to make me better, and I know that I am at least 80% better off than I was before just because of my mentality. Just not looking at, oh, I'm sick. And I've told people whose loved ones have are struggling with cancer or, autoimmune, things of that nature. It's like, don't focus on being sick because that just makes you more ill. It makes you feel more unable to do things. And if you can, within obviously within reason, continue to go about your day to day and continue to look for ways to grow, keep your mind occupied. Because even I was, I've had horrendous headaches from the medication that I have to take to get the mold out of my body. And it's not mold, actual mold, it's the mycotoxins or the airborne part of the mold that you take into your body. And because my immune system was compromised from having autoimmune issues, which it would have been whether I was on medication or not, uh, actually the medication makes it more compromised. So I was in better shape than if I'd been medicated, but I was not able to fight off the mold or the mycotoxins, and then they get into your body and they take root. So uh, that's the medication I'm taking, is to get them out of my body. I'm almost done too. I'm getting close. And I'm actually, and I love this. So when I first started the treatment back in July of 24, they told me that I would be on the treatment for over a year, if not longer. Well, I'm 8 months in, and it looks like I've got 1 month left. So fingers crossed. But a big part of that is how I've treated my body, how I've maintained my mindset, and looking for ways to get better, to get stronger, to stay in a mindset of this is temporary. I don't live here. I'm not a sick person. I'm just dealing with a delay. And it has caused a lot of upheaval in our lives. But at the same time, we have grown immensely through this. I have learned so much and been able to bring a lot of awareness to other people about, look, have an air quality test done in your house. Don't, that's another thing where actually mold toxicity is often mistaken for autoimmune issues by doctors simply because the, the environmental illnesses are not a part of mainstream medical training. And there are certain doctors that deal with it. And so people who've talked to me about things like, because they knew I had the autoimmune, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, dude, no." Like, get your house checked, do an air quality test. Do that first. And through the word of mouth and this kind of thing, like, I know that this has raised awareness, at least in my little circle, and potentially out there in social media land, just from hearing me talk about it, because uh, I guess frequently it's misdiagnosed as lupus or fibromyalgia. And while those conditions can make you more susceptible, if you're living in an environment or working in an environment with toxic mold and you have any type of, you know, compromised uh, body system, that leaves you more open to getting the actual mycotoxicosis, which causes the mold sickness that is what I've been dealing with. Um, but again, there is a place for medication. Don't get me wrong. You don't want to just never go to the doctor. You want to address anything that's off in your body, because our body affects our mind, affects our soul. We have to care for all of us, all parts of our being. Energetic, physical, mental, emotional, all of that has to be in good condition and a balance for us to be at our best and to feel our strongest. However, our current society is so quick to go to the doctor, take a pill, go to the doctor, take a pill. And my thing is, let's solve the problem. What's the problem? What's causing the symptom? And even if it's something that will never go away, there has to be a better option than just medicating the hell out of it, because that makes quick quick interjection. When I was driving a truck, I took a load of, it's basically what they make all tablets out of for medication. It's like the base to make a tablet. And in certain quantities, I had to label my truck with a placard for poison. And this is what they make medication out of? That was a huge eye opener for me. I was like, "Are really? If it's supposed to make us better, then how come it's poison?" And then so many of the side effects, and is it just me, or does every commercial for every medication include anal bleeding? At what point is anal bleeding a good option? And that's right before they say up to and including death. Like, what? So that's why I encourage people. There are so many other options beyond just traditional go to the doctor, take a pill. Even like anxiety, depression, they want to throw a pill at you. Well, there's a reason you feel anxious. There's a reason you feel depressed. There's something causing this. It's not always an imbalance in your brain, because the imbalance in your brain occurs because the neural pathways have been altered because of your state of emotional being of depression. It starts to become a pattern in your brain, which is what changes the chemistry. And so, that being the case, if you can find the source of depression, find the source of anxiety, correct that, your neural pathways will also correct themselves, and then you'll start producing different chemicals and you won't be imbalanced anymore. But if you don't get to the source of it, ooh, big lighting change. Still getting used to my new equipment. If you don't find the source, now you're just falsely medicated while you're still in the situation that causes the depression and anxiety. Just because you feel better about it, as long as you remember your medication, doesn't mean you solve the problem. How about we find out why we feel this way and figure it out there? And the same with illness. If you have symptoms, there is an illness. Now, some of it's a cold, a flu, bronchitis, something like that. You need around antibiotics. You get over it, you move on. But if it's something like the chronic, or okay, there is a reason for this, and most disease in the body is caused by inflammation. Why are we not talking about this? Because you can do a lot for inflammation through your diet, physical activity. There are so many other options besides just popping a pill, especially one that's going to make you worse. So I wanted to come on and do this, like, are you disabled or are you over medicated? Be empowered, educate yourself. And I'm not talking about WebMD, because if you go on WebMD and you have a headache, you're going to think you're dying of a brain tumor before you're done. Actually educate yourself on what causes whatever condition you have. Go to the doctor, get a diagnosis. That's great, legit. I'm not a doctor, and I can get just as far down a rabbit hole reading information if I don't understand or I need diagnostics or what have you. Once you have a diagnosis, that's when you need to take that information and look at your options, because there are holistic doctors, there are functional medicine doctors, there are all kinds of people who have alternative solutions beyond being a lifetime patient and spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on medications that are actually making you worse over time. Because, yeah, now you don't have headaches, but your liver's going to fail. Or it's great that you no longer have anxiety, but your kidneys quit functioning. I mean, come on. Or They give you this medication that's supposed to help alleviate depression, but you got to take heartburn meds along with it because it's tearing up your stomach lining. Can we not just fix the problem or at least make it manageable? Because even without the medication that I was taking for the autoimmune, I still had symptoms here and there. There were still things that I had to deal with, but overall, it was much healthier for my body to deal with that one situation than to just stay over medicated 24/7, 365 for God knows what till I die, which would have been much sooner, at least I'm pretty sure, had I continued on that medication. And I want to say it was Cymbalta, the one that was so horrible. And I could be wrong. It's been a while. But it was legit causes psychosis if you stop it suddenly. And yet the pharmacy would run out. They would be on vacation, not refill my prescription. And I'm like, wow, I this is not the life I want to live. And knowing that once I addressed the problem, which was the stress, the inflammation, that aggravated the conditions. When I got that managed and under control, I would have times if I get sick from something else, it messes that up. Okay, that's a one and done, you know, and not, I don't need to be medicated all the time because even with the medication, you still have a compromised immune system, but you've also got restless leg and night terrors and God knows what else because of the medication. So, just a quick note, hopefully empowering. Take the information that you get from your doctor and think about it. Don't just automatically agree and go along with it. Be like, okay, because if you don't have enough information, what you're doing could actually be more harmful for you. And it's not, doctors aren't trying to hurt us. That's how they're trained. They're trained because Big Pharma sponsors all of the whole, it's a big, ugly mess with insurance companies, pharmaceuticals. There is so much money to be made in those arenas that human well-being has ceased to be the priority. And like I said, it's not doctors' fault. I have a lot of respect for doctors, uh, but I also want to make my own decisions. So I hope this empowers you to really sit back and look at what are they wanting me to do, and for the problem that I'm having, is that reasonable? Is there a source of the problem that can be addressed so that I don't have to be a lifetime patient? I don't have to take medication that requires other medication to not damage me, because to me that's just counterproductive. You know, great. Right now I don't feel so bad, but I won't have a liver in 10 years. It's a problem. It's a problem. So, at any rate, thank you so much for joining me today. Uh, I hope this helps. And again, don't ignore physical issues. Don't WebMD physical issues. Get checked out. Find out what's going on. Then educate yourself on what your options are because you may find that there are some very inexpensive lifestyle changes that you can make that will give you a much better result than medication. I'm always like, don't put a band aid on an arterial bleed. If the source of the problem is deeper, don't cover it up with meds. Find the source of the problem. So much of what we're medicated for can be changed with lifestyle or supplements, little tweaks here and there. I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you again for joining me. I hope this helps, and I will talk to you soon.